Okay. All right. Well, welcome back to the Heads and Tails podcast. Today, I'm excited to have on Ben Lofrumento, who's a former basketball and tennis player. He's also a current college student at the University of Maryland. He's a YouTuber. He's a mindset expert. And I came across Ben's story through my friend George Muha with More Sussex Sports, who has also a great platform. And I just happened to come across it on like a Facebook Live, and I just started listening because I saw Ben's road to recovery. I'm like, oh, this is probably like injury related, and might be something that's up my alley. And I was honestly like blown away at what a 19-year-old kid was kind of talking about and was able to comprehend about his injury and internalizing it, and making something great out of something that was probably pretty traumatic to him at the time. So we're going to dive into that story today and kind of some healthy outlets that he found after his sports career was, or his basketball career was over, prematurely ended, that I found to be super impressive and interesting. And with that, let's get started. So Ben, welcome, my brother.
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you for having me. I'm really, that intro is awesome. I'm ready to get it right into it. Let's go.
Cool. So let's what I was alluding to before of a healthy outlet that Ben had found was he started writing music. And Ben's only 19 right now, right?
Yes, that is true.
So I mean, you're close to the youngest, if not the youngest, guest I've had on the podcast to date. So it's interesting to me because like things that you figured out at 17, 18, 19 are things that took me till I was 26 to figure out in terms of this like transformational life after sports. So you got into music writing. So let's talk about the injury that led to that first. So take us through that knee injury.
All right. So I just want to set the scene a little bit before the injury because it does play like a big part into everything. Okay. I actually didn't even mention this on my first podcast with George, but I'll get into it because I think it's interesting. Going into my freshman year of high school, or after my freshman year, I was the MVP of my freshman team. I was the leading scorer, and I was looking at varsity time going into my sophomore year of high school. Basketball was a really big outlet for me at that point, especially. It was just something that I put myself towards. It gave me that sense of progression, yada yada. But then basically my sophomore year, I just burned out. Like I just played basketball so much, I kind of lost the fun of it. So I told my coach at that point, like I wasn't ready to play. So I said, Coach, listen, like I can't do this right now. I'm gonna come back when that fire comes back because basketball and sports are supposed to be fun. And I understand that there's difficulty with it, but if I'm dreading going to practice, then that's not right. So at that point, you could say in hindsight, like I did quit on myself, right? I quit on myself. I kind of went through this phase of like, I don't really care, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, bad influences, and not really self-governing myself, realizing that like I have the power, I have the ability to be better, right? Or whatever. So basically going into my senior year, what really prompted me to come back to basketball was the fact of what was happening at home with my parents. So my parents, their relationship wasn't, always great. And they just kept arguing more. Basically, long story short, my home was like very toxic. So in the summer, when my parents decided to like get a divorce, and it just, my household became very toxic, right? Because like they're going to court and they're worried about what they're doing. And here I am now realizing like, man, like I got to get back on myself because my parents aren't watching over me. I realized that these 2 years that like I haven't really cared, like that's not satisfying. And it made me having that, like it was a little voice, and you might be able to relate, in my head kind of nudged me like, you shouldn't be doing this. You should really be lifting weights. You should be doing something that is high energy, that has a lot of purpose. So then finally I just gave in. I'm like, all right, I got to get back to the team. So I get back to the team. I'm lifting weights, and I wasn't lifting weights before this. I was still playing basketball, for fun, but I wasn't taking it like as seriously. I was lifting weights. I was with the team again. I was every single day, summer workouts. Like people are going to concerts, I'm working. My parents are doing this, I'm working. And it was just this level of commitment and level of self-govern. I was self-governing myself. So that obviously felt very good. And speaking to outlets before getting into the music, that was my outlet, because obviously there's emotional trauma and it's traumatic and whatever, psychological, and anger and resentment and my lack of peace that I'm experiencing. So I had to put that somewhere, and it was going negative or it was going positive. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go play basketball. Fast forward to the fall, my senior year, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. shooting basketballs. Like I'm taking it seriously. We're working out every day. We have trainers at school, all that. And I'm feeling good because now I have this sense of progression. I have this sense of, I'm really putting work into myself. I'm cultivating a sense of self-respect. And going into the season, I'm feeling good because in my head, it's like, wow, this summer and fall, they weren't the reward. The reward is the season. The reward is me seeing myself on a big head. The reward is like all that. But one day in weight room, I do a squat or something, and my knee just goes. Something goes, and I'm like, okay, like that's not good. I something is clearly wrong. So I'm at tryouts now. I just got an MRI, and my mom texts me 15, and I remember this clear as day. I'm never gonna, honestly, I probably will never forget it. But I'm at tryouts, 15 minutes left in tryouts. My mom texts me, Ben, your MRI just came back. You tore your meniscus. You're out for the season. So for me, that wasn't really about, it was all the work and what the season meant to me. Like it wasn't just a regular standard basketball season. It was like all this 6 months was me learning to respect myself again. Right? So like that nailed me. It totally nailed me. And like I have a hole in my room, in my wall, because I was home, I was crying, I was everything, because it wasn't about playing basketball. It was about what like all of that had meant to me. It was the reward was essentially like I had gone through and endured tough times, and now I'm reaping a fruit.
The
And then
comeback, kind of.
right. And we can get into more about the music, but I will say it took a couple days after surgery for me to realize, and everything snapped in, like that wasn't the reward. Was the self-respect. The reward was the process of me realizing that I'm capable, more capable than what I think. Like that was the reward. And then, as we're going to get into, like I applied that to making music.
Awesome. So in George's podcast, you said a quote. It was like, one's ability to adjust and having a capacity
Mm,
to adapt is important. I forget the
yes.
exact quote, but it was something
Yeah.
along those lines. So
Yeah.
can you take us through how you adapted from that knee injury and kind of transition that into the music, and what like sparked the, hey, you know what?
Right.
I think I want to start, writing some songs and start recording.
So it was always something that I've wanted to do. It was something like I mean, especially because my age, like we love rap music, we love being creative and all that. So in during the phase of when I was getting the MRI to when I got the results, I mean, I pretty much knew, because knowing my body, like I was not okay, and I assumed or figured that I wasn't going to be able to play the season, honestly. So then I was talking to my friends, and I just was like, okay, listen, I'm either gonna make an album or I'm gonna play basketball. It's one of the two. So however things shape is, what's going to happen. So when I got that news, and I had the surgery, and I'm just, on the couch behind me, for a week or two, just recovering. Like, I don't know if you know about the knee, like the device. So basically your knee's kind of like this, and you just kind of go up like 60 degrees every day. And it's just like your knee is just learning how to bend again. So I remember I was writing music, and my computer, like every rotation would like, it would cramp all up. So I was literally just letting my resentment and negativity out through the music. It was really a therapeutic way of like just processing. And it made me, and we've talked about this before, like it made me feel so much more satisfied, because it still feels like I'm making progress. And regardless of whether like it wasn't about making money off the music. It was about, like I said, like the feeling of like that I'm doing something, and making myself better in some sort of capacity.
Yeah, can you talk more about that progress piece? Like you felt like you were making progress, like although it wasn't towards basketball or a sport, you felt like you were making progress. Like can you just
Right.
dive in a little bit more to
Well,
that feeling?
right. So I think going back to the summer, like with my parents divorcing, and I wasn't healed at that point, because it was like spiteful. It was like, you guys are going to do this, so I'm going to go play basketball. It wasn't because I loved myself. Yes, that emotion is powerful, and that emotion like motivated me, but in the end that emotion is self-destructive, if that makes sense. So I consider the progress, even now that I'm talking to you, two ways. One, like, okay, I'm making music, I'm learning new skills, I'm learning how to, use recording software, I'm learning how to write music, I'm learning how to critique myself, and I'm learning what sounds good, what doesn't, what I like, because I put out 12 songs, but I probably wrote 15. And it was like that self-criticism of just having a standard. But more so, what the music allowed me to do was it allowed me to heal and make peace with things. So I was writing the music, and by the end of it, I felt so much more of like a peaceful state because of it.
No, that's great. And just from listening to you talk right there, I got two things that came to mind. The first one is distraction, and the other one is progress.
Mm,
And when I think about my own, transformational life after sports, and I always call it transformation. I never used to until I interviewed this one guest, Vince Ruiz. He called it a transformation. And when I thought about it, I'm like, oh crap, like transition, you're just kind of like going through the motions, like letting whatever waves smack you around and like whatever life throws at you.
right,
Versus transformation, it takes action, it takes initiative, you need to do something to get yourself to transform. It doesn't just happen from sitting around.
right.
So that's what, to me, every transformation needs to probably start off as a distraction from like your feelings that you're having, those
Right.
immediate, like I'm pissed, I'm upset, I'm this, I'm that. You need that spark to be like a distraction at first, but then love the progress that comes with it.
Hmm.
And because I think from being an athlete, that's part of the fun. Like
It
it's
is.
not just like playing the game, it's like getting better.
Yes.
And I think that's what athletes miss the most when their sports taken from them, is that ability to see progress on a daily basis. So what's cool to see about your songwriting is like, it seems like you had an interest in it even before
Right.
the basketball
Yeah.
season,
Hmm.
but you dove into it afterwards because you had the time and the resources to do it, and it served as a distraction. And the progress that you made gave you enough of a fire to want to keep going and to
Right.
produce something that was pretty incredible. And the song that you sent to me, I listened to it probably 10 times just trying to dissect like the different quotes that you had in there, but it's called Talk to Him. And it really resonated with me. And my first question was like, well, who is he talking to? And in my head, like, I think I know who you're talking to.
Who am I talking to?
My interpretation is you're talking to your thoughts.
Mm.
What was your intention when you were writing it?
Because it wasn't, yeah, I mean, I didn't think about it like that. It was kind of just like a catchy chorus, and it meant something to me when I said it. I think, yeah, I do. I think it's like the negative thoughts, the thoughts of like you can't do this, and talking
Exactly.
to them with like because all right,
That's what I
before
heard.
yeah, before we get into the song, like
And we'll link this up in the
yeah,
show
yeah,
notes so everyone can take a listen to
please,
the full
please do.
clip. Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. Like I was working out twice a day. Like I was literally, my mindset changed. It was when I got that surgery, it was all right. So if you think of like a beach, right? Like cold waves crashing, I wasn't scared of the waves. Like I just dove in head first. Like I was like, you know what? Who would be doing pull-ups right now with a torn meniscus? Who would be wearing a weighted vest? Who would be working out every day? Like in my mindset just shifted where I was going into that. So like my negative thoughts, it was like, F you, like I'm not that. Like look at what I'm doing. And even though my body is broken right now, and that's the line we're gonna get to, um, use my mind to make a weapon, turned it to my armory. Like that's what it's that hardening, right? It's like when you're working out, you get calluses on your hand. So it's like, why couldn't I callus over the limitations that I'm perceiving?
Okay. Yeah, I love that. And when you were just talking about that line before, you're talking about like diving into, a cold wave. From my experience, when I hear you say that, I hear of like diving into the unknown. Basketball was known. You kind of knew what was going to happen, what coach was going to have you do at practice, what the game was kind of be like. But, getting a torn meniscus, you never experienced that.
No.
So that's the unknown. And I think that what, not even just athletes, but a lot of people, they're afraid to dive into the unknown.
Mm.
The problem is when you like, that's where the magic
Life.
happens,
That's
essentially.
life.
Exactly.
Like, Kevin, think about it for you, right? Like, you were probably way less scared to start your podcast and more excited because of what you've been through, because you had a reference point of like, I thought it was this, and then I went through it and I realized that I'm better than that. So now in other capacities of your life, you are now better equipped, and like you have like a map. It's like there are different situations, but at the end of the day, the formula is the same. Like there's adversity, you go through it, you test what you think about yourself, and then you get better. And that's kind of what you've gone through as well.
Well, I mean, I think your line explains it perfect. You know, like I used the pain to make my mind a weapon, turned it into my armory. And if you take it in terms of like my context, like what you just said, I got hurt, struggled for years, took the initiative to dive into the unknown, which was podcasting. And you're right, it has, because I took that step, I've gained a different additional skills that I
Right.
never would have had if I never tried it. Um, so I just think like that example and your own example of doing the music is a good example for athletes listening to this, being like, hey, don't be afraid to try that new thing that could serve as a distraction, and then you get addicted to the progress, and then it becomes like,
Right.
your new outlet. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
um so I guess before we drive too far away from my initial quote that I was talking about, which was, who are you
Adapt.
talking to?
Adapt. Mm-hmm. Oh,
um
talk to. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, who you're talking to. When I was listening to it, I'm like, oh, he's like talking to his negative thoughts.
That's awesome.
But you're saying initially that wasn't what you were thinking, or
Um, I mean, talk to him. Like, I don't know. Songwriting is weird because you start with the line and it could be the first line of like the verse, it could be the chorus. So I don't know. Talk to him came and I just ran with it. And I really feel like the verses are really where my what I was feeling comes through.
okay, cool. All right, so next one. I had a torn meniscus, made me compromise the mission,
Yes.
made me livid and malicious. So
Yes.
talk to me about that and what feelings were going through your head when you wrote that line down.
Right. Made me livid and malicious. Yeah, because at that point, if you, like I said, if you think about all of the, and by the way, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. I don't believe that I'm a
Oh,
victim. Yeah,
trust me,
yeah,
anyone listening to you would definitely not think
yeah.
that.
That
You
is
wouldn't be on
not
this podcast if I thought that.
the, I mean, yeah. So like, if you think about now my frustrations, because I wanted, like I said, it was that proving myself and what I could do, and then like my parents and all that. I had so much negative emotion that if that's like a force, all of that force was going one area, and now all of a sudden that like road is stopped and it's still here. So now think about all that negativity that's circulating in me and my psyche and my thoughts. So it made me livid and malicious because before that switch flipped of like this is an opportunity to test yourself, and it was, and I wasn't like a, and I do feel like people who go through surgeries are in a victim phase for like a little bit. I think that's just kind of
It's
just normal.
natural. Yeah.
I think it just happens. So when I was in that victim phase, it's kind of just like, man, like I just feel, I feel like I was robbed. And I said this on the other podcast. All athletes look at it, if you're like fundamentally like a pessimistic, negative minded person, you look at it as something was taken away. But in hindsight, it's like you and I have a gear that normal people don't. It's like when things get hard, you have like a reference of experiences. I've been through that. I have something to prove that I am strong. I can take that. So it's like you have, and we both of us do have like a certain perspective. So I stopped looking at it for what I lost and for what I gained.
No, and I think we both take for granted like how easily you adopted that mindset.
Mm,
Like I know for you at 19 years old, like you saying that, I'm like, oh wow, that's like really impressive that that's the way he thinks. But when I think back to when I was your age, I was still in the I lost something. It was taken away from me. And when I look at it now, it's like I wrote down helpless when you were talking about the
mm,
being the victim. And when you feel helpless, like I feel like there's almost no worse feeling. Like you're
it's
almost like in prison, like
yeah,
by your own thoughts and
yeah,
mentality, which is like the scariest place to be. But what I
man.
hope is that an athlete listening to you and your story realizes that, hey, Ben made this switch with his mindset, pretty early on. And look what he did. Look where he's at right now. I definitely don't have the optimism that Ben has right now. Like maybe I should switch my mindset and be like, yeah, well, what am I gaining from this and stuff like that. So,
Mm.
no, I think
Okay. First off, that was an excellent thought that you just talked about. Like this in like you're free externally, but internally you're trapped. And I think that a lot of people deal with that, whether it's athletes or not. Like it's how much, like, or how many negative thoughts do we impose on ourselves that shackle us? And besides, like I'm just talking about the mindset now, but the mindset was a product of the work. It was okay, I'm looking myself in the mirror with a brace on my knee and I'm still doing pull-ups. Therefore, this is my mindset. So I think like a quick suggestion to anyone who feels imprisoned by any sort of like capacity of their belief systems, it's your action and your mindset. As soon as one changes, the other's going to change. You start working out, you start treating yourself like someone worth respecting, you're going to start respecting yourself. Like, it's just kind of, so it's like, how many times can you impose positive habits and positive actions before you look at yourself as a positive person?
No, I agree, man. I like that. All right, let's talk about another line. We got had to make a pivot, had to change my thoughts, too optimistic. Kind of what we're talking about right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just an adjustment when you realize that, being negative only hurts you. And I think like people who are negative think that, I don't know, you think that other people are feeling your pain, but there's a quote from Buddha. I'm not as into like Hinduism or anything, but I read a lot. So like, I know, you will not be hurt for your anger. You will be hurt by your anger. So it's just kind of making amends and making peace. Like, there's no healthy amount of resentment. That's not a thing.
Right. But I think, taking action like writing a song like this
Right.
helps to get you away from that helplessness. Like, you
Yes.
immediately become helpless as soon as you start taking a step into the unknown and trying something new that maybe you didn't know before, I think. All right. So another line I thought was cool was, I use charisma and sorcery to make that
Mm-hmm.
harmony. What's that one?
See, that one kind of just sounded cool. See, that's actually one of the verse before that. There's one I wish I remembered it. When I was in the rain, I learned to develop acceptance. It taught me everything. Looking into my reflection, I'll be damned if I know my flaws and won't correct them. That one is my favorite, actually.
Okay.
But we could talk about.
No, go for it.
Yeah.
Talk about that one.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was in the rain, I learned to develop acceptance, and then there's another line that goes off that it took me to lose luxuries to make discoveries. It's a certain sense of like, you have everything around you in comfort, and you can kind of go into distractions. You don't have to go within. You don't have to look at like the questions that you really should be facing. So when you lose that and everything's taken away and all you're left with is yourself, you make discoveries. Like, you go in and you pull something out. What was the next line? Mirror and reflection. I forget. See, I wrote this forever ago. But yeah, it's like I said, it's just that capacity to self-reflect. And I don't think a lot of people have that, or think that they have the strength, like, to look in the mirror and say, I got to improve. Like, looking at your body and saying, you know what, I'm not moving the right way. Or looking at how you approach things. I'm not studying hard enough. I'm not doing this. I'm not giving 100%.
Right.
So when you look at yourself, and that takes a certain amount of accountability, vulnerability, courage. But like, when you do that, like I said, it's that newfound self-respect. And then the last one is know my flaws. I'll be damned if I know my flaws and won't correct them. It's like, when something's on your radar, you got to address it. Like, I will not go to the grave knowing that this is something that I should have addressed and didn't, because that is the worst feeling. That's helplessness. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. And kind of what even just listening to you kind of dissect the song a little bit more. And I actually wrote down next to that, the quote that sparked that little part of the conversation was, I use charisma and sorcery to make that harmony. When I was listening to it, because here's my thing. My context is like, the only context I have is the brief phone call we had together and watching you on George's podcast.
Right.
So what I got from that is the how. And that what I mean by that is how you show up and how you carry yourself. And like, when you're in that helpless state as an athlete, like you're like, that's not me. Like, this isn't me. Like, what am I doing? And if you're a helpless athlete, like, you're probably sitting on the bench, because you're not going to be an effective, like, competitor being helpless ever.
Right.
So any athlete that gets hurt, if you find yourself getting in like a helpless position, being like, have that trigger to be like, yo, this isn't me. Like, what am I doing here? And, maybe take that step to do something else to get to, knock yourself out of it. But no, I thought that was great, man.
Well, and maybe the charisma, and like you're saying, the how, it's that mindset, like turning to optimistic. It's the perspective of like, I'm not going to physical therapy mad or resentful. I'm going like, I'm going in here to not only make myself better, but like, make sure I'm saying hello to everyone, making sure that I'm asking about their days. It's just like, just the how of everything, like breeding more compassion and more just, because not only with my drive, but like making sure I'm making the world a better place. And that's something that I'm big on now. It's
Yeah.
really big on now. Yeah.
One of my previous guests, his name is Bill Anthes, is a former Green Beret, and I got this how concept from him. He's helped me tremendously with my mentality throughout this whole kind of experience and transformation to life after sports. And I think that's what I was getting at when I was talking about the how is like my experience with my interactions with you and watching your YouTubes, like basically like what Bill would say is like who you are isn't what you do. It's like how you bring yourself every single day, and when I see you, you're someone that brings positivity constantly, just in your inflection in your voice, like you're engaging,
Right.
you want to help people. Like that's who you are. It's how you carry yourself every
Yeah.
day. So that's I think what I was trying to get at is like if you see yourself catching or getting into that helpless mindset, change your how and how you show up and how you talk to yourself and stuff like that, even to other people.
Mm.
Um, all right, I don't know if we talked about this one yet. When I was in the rain, I learned to develop
Yeah.
acceptance.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I touched on it a little bit, but yeah, it's just that when everything is taken away, being able to, this is more of like an emotional thing, right? Because, like I said, when I got injured, it's like my parents and I wanted this season, I wanted this, and there's so much like tension. Like I wanted that, and it was taken. And it's honestly like I'm so happy and positive now that it's hard for me to like go back to that time because that was so long. It was over 2 years ago, so it's like but like the lessons I've learned from it are still here. But yeah, I think it's just and I guess that helped with my shoulder as well. But it's just when things aren't going well, understanding the process of life. Like there are just natural ups and downs, and it's not like that's a bad thing. It's just like it's going back to Darwin. Like if I can accept that, if I can roll with it, if all I have to do is compliment it, right? Like all I have to do is if life has a natural melody, I'm not trying to change the chords. I just want to play music on my end to make the best piece.
Okay, I like it, man. I got one more quote I pulled, unless you have any other ones that you want to add in there, which is cool with me. It says, I do this for myself. I don't need the clout.
That's a funny one. Yeah, no, I mean it's just that sense of I think this is like a bigger picture. I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but I think it's a bigger picture where people who look for their respect in external things just it's and I made a video on my YouTube about this. I called it you're rolling dice. You're rolling dice with your happiness because okay, I'm coming on this podcast. The only way I'm going to feel good about myself is if Kevin gives me good feedback, right? Like that may or may not happen. But if I come onto this podcast and say, I'm going to be happy if I bring my best self and I articulate myself how I want to, I'm going to be happy every time. So it was really like, listen, I'm not doing this for other people. I'm not doing this for how you look at me. I'm doing this for how I look at myself. And hopefully that could help other people. But at the end of the day, it's about how I look at myself. And that's what that's about.
No, I think that's a perfect point to make. And I'm glad I pulled that quote out because even when I think about the podcast, like, so for me or for you, it was the music potentially that kind of helped you get out of your funk. For me, it was the podcast, which happened to be like 6 or 7 years after I got hurt, but I eventually figured it
Right.
out. But people always ask me like, oh, like, what's your goals with this? I'm like, honestly, like, I just do it for myself. Like, I've gotten like more therapeutic, I guess,
Yes.
insights from interviewing athletes like yourself and other health experts over the past 5 years at this point that I'm like, I don't even care if people listen to it or like it. Like, I just want to do it because it's something that's important to me. And if other people can
Right.
benefit from it, awesome. But
Yeah, that's
I
it.
think, I
Exactly.
think because I took away that external, you know, the need for external
Expectation. Yes,
reinforcements.
yes.
Yeah. Like that's why I'm still sitting here today, 5 years later, doing this and talking to you because I just want to do it. Like I like doing it.
Well, I also think that's why your podcast is viewed a lot and it's obviously has its platform is because you're grounded in the right your soil's right. Like you are focused on the product and the internal and how it makes you feel. So therefore the podcast is good and people sense that, right? Like you're not chasing anything. So that's like the best things are brewed inside and then they happen to go outside. But
Right.
if you switched your focus, then it would be different.
Yeah. Cool, man. So, were there any other healthy outlets that you found during the recovery process that kind of helped you, or?
Yeah, okay. So one, I went to a therapist. And I believe that the first off, the stigma around therapy, in my opinion, is just ridiculous because this is therapy to an extent.
Yeah.
This is what therapy is. It's you giving yourself the space to tell a story, to get your feelings out, and someone listens and they happen to have professional, degrees and all that to back them up. And then you talk and you work things out. So, that peaceful feeling I would not have reached without therapy. And I also, meditate and journal and just I'm very self-reflective and I just give myself that time. So those were tools for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I've never really gotten into the meditation thing. I've tried a
Mm,
couple of times. I just like, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's not for me. I feel like I have other forms of meditation potentially.
so what does
Like,
that include?
I love riding my bike, my road
Mm,
bike.
that's a good one.
Although it's like you're exerting yourself and you have to be like alert to some degree. It's not like you're just like alone with your thoughts. You like kind of are alone with your thoughts.
Right.
I feel like I do like my best thinking or my most deepest thinking like when I'm just riding my bike by myself for 50 miles. Like
Yeah. Well, I think I've experienced something similar. Like I do this thing on the elliptical. I call it soul diving, where it's
okay.
like, yeah, I call it soul diving. So it's like, all right, I am not getting off this elliptical until I have to, and I put a towel on the timer, and I just see how long I can go, and I'm just trying to manage like the psychological of because at some points, a couple minutes, I'm gonna feel great. Oh, I'm fired up. Oh, I want to get off. Right. So it's just managing that mental talk. But the reason I bring it up is because at some point you hit this like state of bliss where your body is kind of just on autopilot and you're in this very like relaxed, calm, and you're not focused on anything. You're just like, and you probably hit that with your bike. And that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. That was very Bill Anthes between the ears esque.
Mhm.
Shout out to him and what he's up to. You should check it out too. You'd be interested in his work.
Cool.
He's the guy that I was talking about with the how. I'll link. I'll send
Yeah,
some links.
please
I'll link
do.
it up in the podcast too.
Yeah.
You had mentioned on our phone call that you started selling sweatshirts too in high school. What you're wearing now?
Yeah, I figured I'd throw it on.
All right,
Yeah,
cool. So yeah, so
yeah,
tell me about that and that initiative, and if that had any help
sure. So
in your transformation.
my rap name, I don't know if it's backwards, but it says Auto BRL. So Ben Ryan Lofrumento, that's my name. And auto is short for automatic. It's kind of just like I rap very like technically, so I figured that would be kind of a cool name. But besides that, yeah. So this is kind of a funny thing. So I wanted to make a hoodie. Like I just kind of wanted to. It was just something that interested me. So I make the first batch, or I show people screenshots of what they would look like, right? And I'm trying to get interest. I'm like, do you guys want some? Da da da. I get about 20 people, or I get no, I get 40 people which is a lot because a lot of my friends, people in my high school, who got some. So I get 40. I get them for 17, 18, sell them for 20. So that's a pretty. I mean, it's an all right margin. Make a couple $100 off them, and then so that day I have them bring them to school. Now, all of a sudden, the same people who I asked that said no now see everyone wearing them because now I intentionally gave them all out that day. So like everyone has them. So people are like, oh my God, what's this? So immediately, like half a week later, 75 orders immediately. Increased my profit margin, like $8.
Because you ordered more.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I figured at that point, like there's the demand. And it was kind of funny because people really like, some people listen to my music, but some people got them because it kind of became a cool thing to do.
Right.
But before I knew it, like the teachers I was going to class, like the teachers that were teaching me had them. And like I was a senior, freshman had them. Everyone in the high school had them. Like there were 150 in my high school. And it was just kind of for me, it wasn't really about the money. It was nice. But it was cool that like this meant like my healing process. This is like this is like the fruit for it, right? Like knowing what the album meant to me and then seeing people buy it, like it really meant a lot to me with that.
That's legit, dude. I'm
Yeah.
like so impressed by that whole thing. But to me, this like another creative outlet, and I have like an entrepreneurial itch too. And I I could do it all day and night. Like it's just like fun to me. Like just
Right.
trying it out. Yeah, the profit margins and this and that. Like just, but it's learning and
It's a
progressing.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fun, man. Yeah, no,
Mhm.
I love that though. So what's like the significance of the yin yang?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me at this point I was fairly spiritual, and I was reading a lot. So to me it just kind of represented where I was in terms of just balance. It
Okay,
was it was just trying to be peaceful.
love that, man. Is that a hat you got on there too? Lofrumento?
I just
Yeah,
got this. Yeah.
shout out. Yeah,
Yeah,
Those
I
fancy
figured I'd come correct.
good.
So yeah, so I actually have a Lofrumento hoodie too. I haven't sold many, but if my YouTube channel gets more traction, I'll probably start selling more. I'm not sure,
Sweet,
but
man.
I will probably give one of these away when I hit 1,000 subscribers. So I'm
Oh,
excited.
all right, I'll be on the lookout, man.
Yeah, yeah, I'll let you know.
Sweet, man. No, I really like that sweatshirt story. That's awesome. But what I was thinking too is like, you said, well yeah, you like put you finished your album, right? And a couple people bought the sweatshirt, but going back to the how, and like I didn't know you when you were in high school, but I know you kind of now. And I could just see like people wanted to be a part of your how, like how the energy that you bring is like probably why people wanted to be a part of it.
It was really cool. I mean, I was at this point I feel like I really became a different person. Like I started caring about more because when you're an athlete, I mean not every athlete, but some athletes kind of have like a superior sort of demeanor or whatever. But when you get punched in the mouth and it's not like that, like I feel like I became much more of like I started checking in on people and texting people and really caring. And it's like that how, like you're saying. And it was genuine. So yeah, I really do think that was part of it too. And I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, I'm big on toughness, and
Mhm.
I had that question at the end, and I always think like when I was 17, I was like, oh yeah, I'm such a hard ass. I could freaking lift weights and score touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm so cool. And when I think about it, I'm like, that's the easy thing. Like
Yeah.
the fact that you dropped a rap album in the middle of your senior year of high school, sold these sweatshirts, like that's vulnerability, dude. Like to put yourself out there and put these songs out there for the world to hear, like that's the toughest thing you could have freaking done. And I'm like, that's way tougher than playing football or playing any sport.
Mm.
Um, I give you props, man. I'm super impressed by that.
Well, it was now that I'm really thinking about it, like my mindset was so it is I don't think I'm ever gonna get back to that point, but it was so internal. Like I did not care about people how people perceive me. Like it was so like I'm doing this for me. This is my focus. This is my goal, and that's why. So like when you're telling me right now, you must have felt so vulnerable or like nah. Like I was just doing what was in my heart, and if people judge me, then they judge me. But I knew I was being true.
Well, that's a super mature way to mindset to have. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I mean, even to this day, I still, think about what other people are thinking or whatever. Probably getting better, but all right. So you're also a stud tennis player. So tell us about playing tennis your senior year, and I'm
Right,
curious, like if you went from being a stud in singles to now you have to play doubles. I think I learned
right.
that on your podcast with George. So I'm curious if like there was a little bit of an ego struggle
Oh, there
with that
was, there was.
one.
One of my rackets could show you.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'll tell you what happened. So yeah, I was my tennis career. I was a 30-win varsity player, which was one of the best in probably my last like the school's decade. So I was a very good player. I had some all county mentions, all that, whatever. 2-year captain, 3-year varsity player. Um, my junior year, I played first singles. I was ranked 7th in the county. Morris County is a very good county, or pretty good county. So I felt pretty good about that. So going into my senior year, I would have been the number one tennis player or at my school again, and I don't know what would have happened, but that was supposed to be me. And our team was actually supposed to be very good, which it still was, but it would have been. So anyway, yeah. Now I have to play doubles because I'm still honestly I probably shouldn't even been playing. Like I couldn't really move like that, but my fundamentals like my serve was still good, my forehand was still good, so I could play doubles and kind of hide my movement a little bit. However, how it works in varsity tennis at high school is you have a ladder, right? So because I was the number one ranked the year before, I was coming in as the number one that season. Regardless of my injury, that's how it was. So I still had to lose matches to go down. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to play singles. Like I knew that, but playing that number one game and just not being able to play, like just losing points that I wouldn't have lost, it really, you're saying, it was in my head. I knew I wasn't a number at that point, like gonna do that, but then literally giving it up, like that was, I smashed my racket. I don't know why I was so mad. Like I knew it, but it was my ego. And then like once I calmed down, I realized like, all right, like just make the best of what you got. This is not your control. And just, I ended up having doubles was really fun. We finished 12-4. I had a really good time, and I still, really enjoyed that season.
Cool. At least you found, so yeah, you got over that little hump and still had
It
some
was,
fun.
yeah,
So that's
it
cool.
was ugly.
All right. Anything else that came up for you that tennis season, or?
Um, Not really. I mean, it was just for me, like it's spring of senior year. I was just enjoying it. I was just trying my best to enjoy it. And I have a twin, so like just being around him and like my friends, some of my friends from the basketball team play. So just, spending time with that was just my focus.
Cool. I didn't know you had a twin.
Yeah, I got a twin.
Is he like the same way? Like just loves to
Um,
big mindset guy, or
no.
athlete too, or?
Yeah, he's an athlete. I would say I'm a better no, yeah, I'm not going to say. But no, my brother is very like he's very government oriented, very history oriented. Like he got fives on all his AP tests. He's really intelligent that way. So there are definitely, it's cool. Like we get along so well together, and I love my brother. Shout out to Luke. So yeah, it's cool for me. Like I never try to compare myself to him, and I hope he doesn't like the same way. So I just let him be his own person.
Cool, man. Love that. Uh, all right. So I know you recently had a shoulder injury.
Mm,
So tell me a little bit tell the audience about the shoulder injury,
right.
and maybe, you said that you have a callous mind from the knee injury. So
Right.
how has this rehab process been compared to the knee?
Okay, so first off, I tore my labrum in my shoulder, and I believe that I believe it was torn in high school, but it wasn't as bad back then. But it's because I'm left-handed, and it's common with a lot of overhead sports, volleyball, swimming, etc. Through the constant repetitions on my serve. The serve was the best part of my game. I put a lot of spin on it, and it's basically like throwing a baseball or football as hard as you can, like hundreds of times. Like that's work. Sorry. That's just what happens. So when I had the torn labrum and I was going through the surgery, I just noticed how different I felt, like in like the medical clothes and like on the bed waiting for surgery. Like I felt like so much more confident. Like this is easy. It's just a time thing. It's gonna take 6 to 8 months. 6 months is next week actually. For it to heal. But I know that like I am like having the knee experience, I'm like, what can a shoulder do to me? Like, I already know that I can take this. And that's kind of what I was saying to you before. It's like when you have and this is a quote I said on the other podcast, how can my branches ascend to heaven if I'm not rooted in hell? So when you take yourself down there, you know that you're so much more capable. So when you have something that's less, when you compare it to what you've already done, you already realize the strength that you have.
Yeah, perspective's a powerful thing, man, for sure. You just got to have the, I guess, look internally enough to realize that, all right, this is a low point, but it's going to give me perspective, and it'll be that much easier going forward.
Right.
It'll never be this bad.
Right.
Um, cool, man. So now you're big into YouTubing, and I know you're like
Yeah,
super consistent with it, which I know from the podcast perspective is like hard
it
to
is hard.
to maintain the consistency and put content
Yeah.
out constantly. So tell us a little bit more about, I guess, how Lofrumento came about, what the
Right.
name obviously, and what your goal is with that, and maybe how it's helped you in this transformation or this piece of your transformation.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right. So, first off, when I went through my first knee surgery, I was really into reading, like I've said a couple times. So I made an Instagram account called Lofro Reads. It was basically just like I would read a book, and I would kind of like, it would just like initially I'd post a picture of a book, and I would just write what I thought about it, and then it slowly evolved into me making videos of me talking about it, right? And then I just realized, like you're saying, like holy cow, like I wake up with such optimism 6 of the 7 days of the week, if not every day. So why not like start getting on my phone and start sharing that? So on my Instagram, like if I wake up, I'm like, and if I'm feeling, you know what, like this is an awesome day to get better, like come on guys, like let's do it, or whatever, like whatever my message is for the day, I'm vulnerable enough and true enough to myself to post it. And come to find, like people need that. right? And I can't tell you how many people I know, like, man, like that video really helped me, or like the text I get or whatever. Um, so going into YouTube, it's more of like I said to you before, I'm so into my mindset and approach and habits and consistency. And I know just from people around me, it's not common for people my age, but there are people my age who are looking to get better. There are people my age who hang around wrong people and do wrong things, not because they're bad people, but because they're misguided and they don't have the approach. So it's like, okay, I have a perspective and experiences that have founded who I am. So why don't I get on YouTube, learn how to edit, learn how to record, learn how to shoot a shot, which I'm still not great at, but I will be. How many more videos is it going to take? It'll happen at some point, right? So for me, it's just kind of like, I know intrinsically that my content is good. I know it's from my heart, and I know, as corny as it sounds, and I know that people want and need to hear it. So I'm just, like I'm saying, just balancing that internal, making sure like I want my channel to grow, and I'm sure you want your podcast to grow, but it's really just making sure that like I make every piece of content I put out, it's what I believe in. I'm not just putting out a BS video. I would rather not post than post a bad one. So, and it's cool now because like I get messages, like I got a message from a dude in Italy. He's like, dude, like I watched your video. It changed my life. Like, I thank you. Or like a message from the Netherlands or South Africa or Germany. And it's like, dude, like I don't even know who I'm touching with this video. I don't even know who this is going to impact. I don't know the positive change that this can have. So damn it, I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna leave myself vulnerable, and I'm going to speak my truth. And I know, because we're all human, it's gonna hit someone and it's gonna help them. So that's what you and I are in it for. That's it.
Yeah, I love it. And it's that thirst for progress too. I think that's what I hear in your
Yeah,
voice too. And it's fun. Like progress
it's
is
fun.
fun, even if it's just like a little, incremental, piece that you're getting a little better at. But that's awesome. So, all right. So as we kind of wind down the conversation here, where can people find you online?
Right. Okay. So my Instagram and my YouTube channel are both Lofrumento. That's Lofro mental. I bet you guys know how to spell that. Both of them. So yeah, if you guys would like to see my content or check it out, I'd really appreciate it. So, especially my YouTube, I post 6 to 7 times a week. I'm trying to post every day. And I try to do things that are out of the box, that are unique content that, like, for example, like I made a video of me like raking leaves, or like me and turning it into a lesson, just what I see. I'm just trying to give my perception to the world. And if you resonate with it, awesome. If you don't, more power to you, whatever it is.
Love it, man. I'll definitely link those up for everyone, and I'll shout you out on my social channels. Uh,
Appreciate it.
this is how I end all my interviews. It's with the last question of what's your definition of toughness?
Hmm. All right. My definition of toughness is, regardless of what's going on, keeping your focus. And I talk a lot on my channel about the path, right? So I think a lot of people, with COVID or whatever, like, it's easy to play the victim. It's easy to blame external factors for why you can't do something. But at the end of the, oh, I don't have a gym. That's your excuse. You can do push-ups, you can do pull-ups, whatever. Like, toughness is finding a way. Like, that is toughness to me. It is, regardless of what's happening, it might not be what you want, but it's what you need. Like, it's like, okay, I might not be able to work out right now. My shoulder's out. 6 weeks rest. I can walk. I can stretch. I can read. I can check in. Like, just toughness in a definition is, regardless of what it is, maintaining progress and going forward, and just keeping that mindset. That's what it is.
19 years old, folks. Yeah. No, that was awesome, Ben. And I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story and your insight. And I think, you know, I honestly can't even remember the last time I had like an interview where like I was as not engaged. I always try to be engaged, but I mean like back and forth, like we were just talking, like, and before
Right.
I knew it, we were talking for like
Right.
an hour, so I had fun doing it. I hope you did too. And
I did. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, appreciate your time, man.